What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk about the potential of a recession in 2022 because there's a lot of things that nobody's really telling you. I want to talk about a potential housing market crash and also a stock market crash and what you should be doing to protect your money. So if you have any questions on any of this stuff, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. But before we get started, just spend 2 seconds, go ahead, hit that like button, and let's get right down to it. So, are we going to see a recession in 2022? Some say yes, some say no. Some are already expecting we are in the middle of a recession because just earlier this week, we got reports that our GDP declined by 0.4% in Q1 of 2022. This puts our annualized GDP at a negative 1.4%. This would put us in a recession. Now, we also know that there's a lot of things changing. What has happened over the past 2 years, and again, we were in a recession during the pandemic. Early on in the pandemic, we fell into a recession. Well, we quickly got out of that because the stock market started to surge. People were spending money like crazy. It was mostly on online sales, but they were spending money. Travel was hit, obviously, because people couldn't go anywhere. People didn't want to fly. Some places were actually shut down. You couldn't travel to them, especially if you didn't have a vaccine, right? But what we know now is Amazon's growth was the lowest it has ever been. This was reported just this past week. We also know that aluminum orders are stalling as U.S. buyers are worried about a possible recession. We know, and it's not just aluminum, it's all materials. We know the housing market is cooling off as well, and some are expecting it will crash. And the reason it's going to crash is for a couple different reasons. Number one, people have less money to spend because prices of everything else is going up, which means they don't have that much discretionary spending to put towards a home because they're spending it on food, their car payments or their maintenance. They're spending it on insurance and other goods like entertainment and a phone bill and all these other things. It's creating a lot of concerns. So that's one reason why we could see a housing market crash. The other reason is because the Federal Reserve keeps raising rates. As they keep raising rates higher and higher, what's happening is people can actually afford less of a home, which means that there's not as many buyers out there for the higher end homes. So what you need to look for, this is something that always happens. Okay, it happened in 2008, happened in 2018, it happened in a little bit in 2020. It will happen again, most likely in 2022 at the end, or potentially sometime in the beginning of 2023, is look for the higher end homes. Look for those homes to start to see price drops. As they do, okay, you'll start to see the homes right below it. Let's say it's $1 million plus. You start to see price drops of $75,000. Then you go to the other homes, $500,000 to $1 million. You start to see, okay, $50,000, $40,000 price decrease. Then you go to things under $500,000. All right, $30,000, $35,000, $25,000, and you start to see these prices decrease. After you see it in the lower income, the entry-level homes, that is where it really ramps up, and you could see a housing market crash. So just be prepared for that. And if you want to be prepared to buy then, you got to start saving now. The next thing is the stock market selling off. Well, we've been seeing this for the past couple months, right? And this isn't great news because these are some very good companies that are selling off. For example, Amazon. Amazon, had some growth, but it wasn't the growth that they were expecting. So the price dropped. They started to sell off. Saw the same thing with Netflix. Netflix completely tanked, right? Many companies are seeing pretty much a decline. Tesla has dropped off recent highs, right? And again, these are good companies, but they're starting to sell off. So there's some speculation that we could potentially be in a recession. And if we are, everything's going to drop. We also know wage growth has slowed. And even though wages have gone up, they're not going up as quickly. The other problem is if we continue to see inflation, but yet wage growth stops or stalls, that's the issue, is then that gap between inflation versus our wages, as that widens, people can spend less money because they have less to spend. And also spending across the board has really dropped as well. Now, the risks of a recession are real, and most people are not telling you about it. And everybody is saying that a recession could be coming, but they give you very little advice as to how to get through it. So in just a minute, I'm going to do exactly that. Here's what you need to know. If we continue to see inflation run up, then the chances of a recession happening are more likely. As inflation goes up, recession risk goes up as well because people have less money. Again, the reason is simple. As consumers have less money to spend, that means our GDP is going to drop. It's going to be impacted. This is why the Federal Reserve is so focused on bringing inflation back down to a more manageable level. Even if it's 5 to 6%, that's more manageable than 8.5%. Yeah, it's not 2 to 3%, but it's more manageable. However, the Federal Reserve has to be very careful not to push so hard to bring inflation back down that they cause a recession themselves. They could do it. They will do it if they have to, but the hope is that they don't. Now, one of the big worries right now actually isn't a recession. And I want to address this because a lot of people are so focused on a recession, inflation. Well, here's what you need to keep in mind. The big worry right now between many economists is stagflation. And this is when we see rising prices due to inflation, but at the same time we're seeing rising prices, we're also seeing a stagnant economy. And according to many top-level economists, stagflation would lead directly to a recession. So that's one of the big worries is stagflation. Okay? So here's what you should be doing now to prepare for a possible recession. Again, this is not financial advice, but these are just some of the things that many financial experts would tell you this is probably what you should do. Okay? First, if you don't have a job, get yourself a job. If you do have a job and you do not have a side income, get yourself a side income to help you insulate yourself from more inflation. Right? If you have more money, then it means even though you have more money, you're probably spending more, you're more insulated. You feel a little bit better. You feel like you can afford some of these things, which is ideal, especially in times when everything is going up in price. The next thing is sell assets that you are currently profitable on. If a recession hits, everything's going to go down in value. This means stocks, this means real estate, business valuations, everything's going to drop. Okay? So just keep that in mind. If we do dip into a recession, let's say you sell now, you sell, let's say, a home, you sell a business, you sell your stocks now, and then they continue to fall, you're going to feel like you just won. Okay? Now, I'm not saying go and sell all your stocks. I'm not saying go and sell all your real estate. I'm not doing either one. Okay? You know, I've sold some stuff, but I'm not selling everything. Because if we dip into a recession, my assumption is, and according to many experts, we're not going to be in this recession for 18 months. This could be pretty quick. This could be a quarter or 2 quarters of a recession, and then we pop right back up. So you don't have to sell. The next piece of advice is to create an emergency fund. This means about 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Now, if your expenses are $2,000 a month, then you save anywhere between $6,000 and $12,000. That's your emergency fund. The next thing, be patient. Be patient with big decisions. These are things like investing, moving, any big spending, okay? Any big decision like this, okay? You need to be patient. If you're not sure, should I buy this house? Well, maybe not. Be patient. Don't jump into something too early just because it's right there, okay? Impulse decisions, especially in a recession, are not a good decision. Okay, so that's what experts are currently telling us. Again, as always, as I know more regarding a potential recession, what news is coming out as we get more updates, I promise I'll bring you these updates as quickly as possible. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.